Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Mat Chat, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Riding co-pilot with me today is my good friend Jason Keck, and we are super excited to be rejoined by your defending world champion, your Final X champion, your Olympic bronze medalist, Thomas Gilman. Thomas, thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
So this is Keck's always full of good ideas, and after you won, he's like, let's get Gilman on again. So I said, let's do it.
It's always a good time right after that.
Always better to call after a win.
Yeah, that's right.
You've been winning a lot lately, so your phone's probably been ringing a lot. Let's start with that. If you just had Father's Day, right?
Yep. Yeah, my first Father's Day was on Sunday, so that was exciting, different. I didn't really think too much of Father's Day before I'm a father, but it's kind of cool. I wouldn't be a father without my wife and daughter, so thanks to them. I didn't really do too much. I'm just here to support and do whatever I can do.
Were you grilling, or did a meal get made for you, or how did that all work out?
We just kind of hung low. We went on vacation a week or so ago, and we got back. All three of us got sick, so we're just kind of recovering and just hanging low. So we're all doing better now, but it was kind of a rough couple of days with the two parents and the baby being sick. So, yeah, we just not too much, just normal day.
I told you this off the air. I met your father about on the ballpark, and he had some very kind words for the podcast and all that stuff. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with your dad.
Yeah, so obviously, he's the guy that got me into wrestling. He was a wrestler to a certain extent when he was growing up, and a little bit in college. And he was my first coach, and him and my family as a whole really sacrificed a lot. Traveling, taking me different places. Taking me down to Kansas City to be down there with Jason and his club. It really helped me out a lot. We've been all over the country together, and really all over the world too. Now that I've moved on to bigger, better coaches. But no, that's not a knack to him. I remember going to high school. He was kind of really my main coach going up into high school. But when I went into high school, we just kind of said, hey, like, I've taken you this far, and I don't know if I can take you any farther. So I'm just turning you over to Coach Hildebrandt here. So, essentially submit to him. I have no more input really, even though he did a little bit, but he was very, very wise in that sense. A lot of dads try to keep that control and try to stay with their kids and be their coach their whole lives, even though maybe they're not up to the task. And my dad was humble enough to know that, like, hey, we've done good things. I've done good things for you, but this is above my pay grade now, and turning you over to someone different that can take you bigger and better places. So just, yeah, it was, looking back, it's not an easy thing to do. Me being a father now, I'm like, I don't know, I have all this experience, with athletics and wrestling in particular. If my kids want to wrestle, at some point I'm gonna have to turn them over to someone else, because the kids, they're not really going to listen to their dad as much as someone else maybe. But that'd be a hard thing to do, to kind of like just turn your son over to another person to coach and try to have them develop them. So just looking back, that was a very humble thing of him to do.
There's two thoughts that come to mind, and then I'm going to let Jason come in. Number one is, when you turn your kids over, that bar might be a little higher than most people, considering how much you've won and done in wrestling. And the second thing is, Keck's the kids club head coach of like a 19-time state champion, and I know his favorite part of the job is 85 dads telling him what he's doing wrong and what those individual kids need. So he probably loved having you in the room, that Pat left it alone and let him do his thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine being a coach. I think about that, almost every day. What are you going to do when you're done competing? And the natural progression is, of course, coaching. But then you think about everything outside of coaching, dealing with parents, the bureaucratic BS, administration, all that. That's the hard part of the sport. So I don't know. I have a little bit of maturing to do before I take that step, of course, because I'm still, I'm getting better, but I'm still a little ornery. I just tell somebody to go fly a kite if I don't like what they're having to say, if they're getting my business. So sometimes when you're in business, that doesn't really go very good. If you have a club, you don't have any kids because the parents don't like you.
Thomas, my son Kale is a freshman down in Little Rock, and luckily I was down in Tulsa with David at the junior duels, and we got to call the girls finals, and then I made a little trip to see Kale, and our relationship has changed a lot since he started. What's the relationship like with your dad from when you were a child, and then you talked a little bit about it when you were into high school and then college, and now you're still competing, and now you're a grown man with your own kids, and talk a little bit about kind of that dynamic of the relationship and how some things have changed and how some things have stayed the same.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's changed a lot, but one thing that hasn't changed is, he's still there. He's a little more on the fringes now, but he's always, he goes to as many events as possible. And it's harder now with everything being international, but he tries to get to like Bout in the Ballpark or Final X or, the Worlds. Those are kind of key events that he tries to hit up, but he's always obviously keeping track of, what I'm doing as far as results wise, touches base once in a while, see how I'm feeling, how my training's going. Stuff like that, but he's not absent by any means. I don't think you can be as a father, especially when you were a wrestler and then your son wrestles currently. It's hard to completely be absent because we spent from I started wrestling when I was 6 or 7 until I was 13. He was essentially my coach there every practice, taking me everywhere. So it's hard to just like completely step away, but a lot more, obviously more hands off now ever since high school to a certain extent, but always there. He never really makes too much of a commotion when he goes places. Sometimes he'll introduce himself as my dad, probably because he needs a free drink or something, but
hey, that worked. That did work.
Yeah, it did work. So
work.
can't knack the guy for that. Now I know where my brother gets it from. No, but he usually stays pretty quiet about most things and just kind of is a spectator just like anybody else, but has a little bit more invested than the average fan.
Let's talk a little bit about Final X. I was talking to somebody I respect a lot in wrestling, and I said, back in like 2018, it felt like there was this whole group of guys at 57 kilos that on any given day, if they were right and the other guy was a little bit off, 5, 6, 7 guys could win. Last time you were on, you told us about, a couple years ago, you were really injured, couldn't even shoot, had a hamstring injury, that whole thing. And that, I think in hindsight, we see now that sort of brought you back to the pack. But it really feels like now you've separated yourself. I know there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. There's a difference between thinking / knowing you're the best in the world and also training, like you're the JV guy and working to get better every day. But as the person in that 3 or 4 years ago, did you feel like there's this pack of people and I have to separate myself? And do you feel like now that you have separated yourself?
Yeah, I think even going back a year before that, 2017, I was, the new guy on the block, and that was a very loaded bracket down in Lincoln, and I had to kind of sift my way through that to come out on top and represent the United States. And back then, I didn't think too much of it. I knew it was a crowded field. I knew that I was going to wrestle a lot of good guys. And I just thought, I just go out there and wrestle hard and do my best and see what happens. And I came out on top, and then right then I realized that. Once you make your first team, it's not really about making the team anymore or just winning the worlds. It's about, like you said, separating yourself. And so once I just kind of got that confidence initially that, hey, I'm good enough to make a team, I'm good enough to medal. I went to get silver that year. Now let's start focusing on not just making a team or getting a medal. Let's start separating ourselves from everybody in the United States and then in other sense, the world. And so, it's been an up and down road like everything else in life. I got hurt in 2018 and kind of put me kind of back in the middle of the pack, you could say, even though I was sitting out Final X and I just had to win 2 matches, There's still a lot of good guys. Ramos is still there. Fix, obviously, those guys had to go through the tournament, and it's still a pretty crowded field in that time. And then, fast forward to 2019, still crowded, you know. But I don't know. It's a little different now. I don't know what the reasoning is, but it seems like a couple of years ago, everyone was competing. Everyone wanted to, try and take a crack at the title, so to speak. But now you get a lot of guys. It could be a really crowded field still, but the guys just aren't competing. Whether some guys are injured, and that there's that reason. One guy in particular, Lee, he's injured, so he's got an excuse. Not it's not an excuse, but he's not going to be in there. But then guys like Suriano and different guys like that, I don't know. It could be a lot more crowded, but it's not. I don't know the reasoning. I don't think that the reasoning is that I'm just so far ahead that they don't want to compete. I don't think that's it. I don't know. But it's almost discouraging a little bit from a spectator perspective. You could have a very highly contested weight class at 57 kilos, but you got really just two guys right now. It's me and Veto for now. And just like I said in my press conference at Final X, just grateful for him to step up and put it out there and willing to compete regardless of the outcome. So I think there's a little bit of ego involved. People don't want to put their ego on the line and risk that getting hurt or losing. And I think that's a shame, because the only way we're going to push the sport of wrestling forward in the United States is have guys compete. You got to have guys contesting these weight classes. But I'm just focused on myself, just doing everything I can to get better. And I feel like I am getting better, with the change of environment and change of perspective. And my whole life's really changed in the last 2 years, and it's been for the better. And just looking to just keep evolving, keep getting better, because there's been a target on my back for a little bit now, but now that I'm Olympic bronze and world champion, guys are really going to start paying close attention to the details. I think of I shoot mostly with my left hand, so something I've been working on is how can I get my right hand more involved in the match, because guys are going to start circling away, controlling my attack hand. So just focus on those little details, because I'm trying to put myself in my opponent's coach's shoes. How would I beat me? And so, well, if I was going to beat me, I would back up and play the edge and try to get something squirrely on the edge and control my left hand and get inside. And so I've been just trying to work on those kind of things and just keep evolving, because if I don't keep getting better, then somebody else is going to. So I don't want to learn that lesson the hard way. I want to learn it in the room and stay ahead of the game there.
I got two quick questions, then I'll let Jason jump in. Number one is, as much as you focus on you, how much game planning was there done for Veto? And separate question, but we have a lot of coaches and athletes that watch this. I asked Kevin Jackson this because his path is similar to yours, that he was a great wrestler, but didn't win an NCAA Division I title, and then went on to do things that most NCAA Division I champions never do. And where did that confidence come from to be able to do something that theoretically, like you almost skipped a step and then went up to the highest of heights to be a world champion?
Yeah. So can you repeat the first one? I kind of zoned out there a little bit.
It's okay. People zone out listening to me all the time. It's no big deal. I said, as much as you focus on yourself.
Oh, yeah.
How much did you focus on Veto, especially like leg lace defense and stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's a good question, especially bring up the leg lace. Because going back to the trials, Olympic trials last year, if you remember the first match, he came out right away, single leg. I tried to kick out. He had me locked down right into a leg lace, 4-0 right off the bat. And so, I mean, if you watch any of his matches, if he gets on top, he finishes guys. If he has an opportunity, he's really good at that lace. And so luckily I got Coach Jimmy Kennedy here, and he's, just happens to be a good leg lace guy. So I had him, lace me up a couple of times, and we focused on it for maybe a day and a half. After we knew that Veto was the guy, we're like, okay, we need to go over this position. And if we turn down and kick out, is that the right option? I don't know. If you do, then you got to be ready for the lace because he's coming hard. And he did, and we were ready for it. But other than that, I wrestled him, 4 times last year. So once in, or was it 4 times? 3 times last year. So I knew what I was going to get, and I'm familiar with him. I'm a student of the sport. I've watched all his matches through the year. I watched all of Suriano's matches. I watch everybody's matches throughout the year just because I have an idea of who can possibly come through and be a contender. So I was very familiar, but I didn't spend too much time. Like I said earlier, I'm just worried about progressing my style, my sport, personally forward. There, a laundry list of things that I need to do better and I can get better at, and that's what I really focus on every single day. But when you have one-off guy, that you're gonna have to wrestle him 2 times, a series, um, focus on areas where he's good, but you don't dwell on it, right? We went over it a couple days, and I looked at Coach Cody. And I said, "Hey, we're good," and he's like, "All right, we're good. We're just good. Let's figure out how to get to the single leg when he's backing away, and um, careful on the edge, patient, calm, and yeah. And there's so many things, outside of the physical aspect of the sport um, that I've been working on too. Because when I got hurt last year at the trials, it was kind of a life-changing experience because I went to California to see a guy and get healed physically. But what I realized there is the physical part is easy. Everyone works hard. Everyone can do the rehab. Everyone can do that. And that's something I've always been good at in the sport of wrestling, is working hard physically. I'm fairly decent technician, and I can do all that stuff. But one thing, going to your second question, I was never really good at was the other 3 planes in life. So you have the physical plane, the mental plane, the emotional plane, and the spiritual plane. And when I personally have success, all 4 of those planes intersect. And so in college, I was always, physically ready, mentally prepared to a certain extent, but I was definitely never ready to win emotionally and or spiritually. And so addressing those things has really helped me jump from where I was at to where I'm at now. And it's not like, oh, I have it figured out and that's it. It's an everyday kind of battle and practice. Every time I go into workout, it's not just working on things physically as far as technique, conditioning, strength, whatever. It's trying to stay emotionally present throughout the workout, spiritually present, saying a prayer before you go in the room and when you leave the room, and that in turn helps you mentally, because you can be as mentally tough as you want, but if you're not emotionally present and emotionally stable, then things kind of get out of control really quick. You're just not there. So, back to the first question, there's so many things that I need to work on that I can't spend too much time worrying about the other guy. And that's kind of a principle of Coach Kale's is, who cares what this guy does good? You do a lot of things really good, so go out there and do what you do good. If you make a mistake, so what? Make up for it in your pace and pressure and intensity. So
that's awesome. Jason, go ahead.
Thomas, you talked about watching other people's matches. Did you review your matches from Final X?
We tried, but we couldn't find the footage. But I was there. I was pretty emotionally present, so I remember every second of both those matches pretty vividly. I remember, when I got taken down into that lace, I remember. I mean, I could feel it to this day. Exactly what he was doing, how he pulled my knee back, and it was tight, and I can feel that even right now. So we didn't really have to watch it. We just kind of talked through it and figured out exactly what the coaches saw and what I was feeling out there, and yeah.
Well, I called your dad after that match, and I said, man, like Thomas is that's the best that I've seen him. I mean, you kicking out of a couple of those positions and wrestling through, every position, and like your flexibility and everything just looked so on point that, it looked like you're continuing to get better and you're already the world champ, So I just kind of want to get your thoughts on, do you feel like you're the best Thomas Gilman that's been on the mat so far? And if so, kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, I think so far, right? I think that's key, because you got to continually to get better. And Coach Kale says it all the time. The first one's the easiest one. Doing it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, that's when it gets hard. So just continue to develop and just stay humble and not letting things go to my head like, oh, I'm a world champion. The best wrestling I've done so far was at Final X. Just keeping that in perspective. That was good, but there's always things to get better in. But I think I've had all those skills. They come out in practice. Sometimes it was just a matter of putting those skills together at the right time and having the courage to kind of do them. So I think I'm getting the not even the confidence, just the courage to kind of put myself out there and do some of those skills, like turning back in. It takes a lot of courage because there's a lot of threat there. Kicking out and turning in the same way. So I've had all those skills for years. Like I said, I do them in practice, but I never really had the courage to maybe put myself out there that much. I'm a pretty conservative wrestler for the most part. So just trying to get everything firing, when the spotlight's on. Because, in the past, spotlight's on, I could win, but it was always a very conservative style of winning. Now I'm starting to, have a little bit of freedom, emotionally, and just go out there and just wrestle freely. And so that's what I was able to do. And I think if I keep implementing things in matches that I do in practice, I think I'll be just fine.
Yeah, I think you'll be just fine too. So, I talked to Keck after, we do the podcast, and we thought probably if they had an outstanding wrestler that it was probably you or somebody who pulled an upset, something like that. But in terms of the favorites that were supposed to win that just dominated, it was you. So tell us a little bit about between now and Serbia. What is your process? Do you taper down? Do you taper up? Are there cycles? And then the other part that I'm super interested, I'm really interested in this answer because of your history as a competitor and your knowledge of politics. What do you think about certain countries not being allowed to compete at the World Championships this year?
Yeah, as far as the first question, right after Final X, we definitely took some time just to relax. It's a fairly difficult weight cut for me. So just working with Coach Cal with Training Lab, there's a lot of science behind, letting your body kind of bounce back and your hormones bounce back, because when you're cutting weight the way a lot of us do, your hormones kind of take a hit, so it's hard to sustain if you don't let your hormones bounce back. So we took a couple weeks just to completely just do nothing. I went on vacation with my wife, just trying to, not think about wrestling for a couple days and get out of town, because we could do a staycation, which probably would have been a more responsible thing to do with a 6-month-old. But a staycation doesn't really work for us because there's always things to do around the house, so we wouldn't be able to relax too much. But now we're back from vacation and we're feeling good, starting to, get this illness out and starting to rev back up. We're going to Tunisia here in about 3.5 weeks. So it's going to be a different type of event. It's a ranking event, so you got to be ready to go and be a lot of good guys, but it's not the World Championships, if you know what I'm saying. So we're going to kind of train, not through it. We're going to peak, mini peak for that, but our sights are set on being the best possible version of myself in Serbia and Belgrade in September. And so there'll be, a little peak for Tunisia, a little time off, and then we're rock and roll and gearing up. We'll have a good training cycle going into the Serbia. As far as politics goes, I think it's very unfortunate. Everyone knows what's going on in Ukraine and with Russia. And here's my perspective. The Russians, I'm not saying that they cheat. I'm not making any accusations, but there is evidence of them cheating. Maybe not in the sport of wrestling, but in other sports, right? And so does it trickle down to wrestling? I think you'd be naive to say it doesn't, but I'm not accusing. So let's punish the Russian Federation for what they do wrong, right? As far as the athletics go, let's punish them for the doping. So instead of letting them compete, under a neutral flag, which is a whole nother issue I can get into, instead of letting them compete under a neutral flag, even though they're doping, we have evidence of that, don't let them compete. But when you're not letting these guys compete because of something their dictator's doing, and they have no say, or they didn't vote to say, hey, let's go to Ukraine. That's not how it works there. It doesn't even work like that here in the United States. I don't think that's very fair. As a competitor, I don't care what the political circumstances are. I don't care what the doping accusations are. I want the best guys to be there, whether they're doping or not, because I want to win the worlds with the Russians there, the Iranians, the Japanese, the North Koreans. I want everybody there to win the worlds because it just makes it more legitimate that way. It almost in the sport of wrestling, it works to their favor to compete under a neutral flag because a lot of these guys that in the sport of wrestling, they don't consider themselves Russian per se. They're Dagestani, they're Ossetian, they're Chechnyan. So for them to be able to compete under a neutral flag, that works to their benefit. I don't have to represent the Russian Federation. Sweet, game on. So I think it's unfortunate for them to be punished for something that they have no say. So I think it's just it's sad, but we'll see. I don't think that it's out of the question that they'll compete. If you're following some of the Dagestan stuff on social media, they're training. Not sure what they're training for, but they're training. So in the back of your mind, you got to be ready to go. I mean, they'll be there. I believe. I hope.
You believe they will be there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, why wouldn't they be? I think it also sets a bad precedent. We're not blameless here in the United States. Our government isn't blameless. Let's say we do an airstrike somewhere in Afghanistan, we kill a civilian. Are they going to not let us compete at the Worlds? I think that's very unfair. It's a different, it's not apples to apples there exactly, but you understand what I'm saying.
No, the result is the same. That athletes that worked their tails off their whole life and didn't have a decision on what happened politically are now being caught up in that process and punished. I was 99.99% sure that you'd want to wrestle the best guys in the world, whether they're doping or not. So that answer didn't surprise me at all. And I will say this, because you're not saying it, if anybody isn't sure if Russian is doping, they just need to go watch Icarus among 19 other things on Netflix. And I think they'll be pretty convinced that that's happening. So, Jason, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure. Getting ready for the Worlds, Kumar is probably going to be there from India. Takahashi, who you've wrestled a couple times. Again, what are your thoughts on getting a chance to wrestle some of the best in the world?
It's exciting. I've said it a couple times in a couple different interviews. I'm looking forward to if the cards align for the both of us to wrestle Kumar. I think that'd be a very fun match for me and him, and also for the fans. We're very similar in the sense of we're not the most technical guys in the world, but we wrestle the hardest, and you can't dispute that whatsoever. So I think it'd be a good, hard-nosed, hard-fought match, and so that would be a really fun one. As far as Takahashi goes, some of the intel that I've seen doesn't seem like he's going to be on the team. The guy that wrestled the Worlds at 61 last year is going down 57. It seems like he'll be the representative. I actually talked to Takahashi in Tokyo a little bit, and it sounds like he's going to retire. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe he'll get some motivation to come back. I would love for him to come back because I'm 0-2 versus him, the World Finals and then the World Cup. So I'd love to at least get one back there. But yeah, but it comes down to anybody who's standing across from me. It doesn't matter. I want to wrestle anybody and everybody, just the best guys in the world. Especially those two guys. Their credentials speak for themselves, and especially Kumar. He's a very, very tough guy and very humble too. So it'd be a very great match.
You mentioned Tunisia. Is that going to be your only competition before Worlds?
Yeah. Yep. So that'll be like our tune-up tournament, you can call it, leading in the Worlds. And I don't think, just with the timing, because there's a lot of events like right now. So you got Italy going on right now, Tunisia in a couple of weeks, Poland's like right after that, and there's one more, but they're all right there. So it'd be hard to go to Tunisia and then turn around and go to something else unless we did a doubled up on a tour and just stayed over there for a couple of weeks. But having a family and stuff going on at home is just not in the cards.
Tell us a little bit about, well, I remember when you came on the last time, and not that we questioned it, but you said give the Penn State coaching staff a whole season without a pandemic and a full schedule, and we'll see who wins the nationals. And clearly you were right about that in spades. Their ability at the collegiate level to wrestle up to or exceeding their seeds, their ability to flip losses into wins when it counts, and then their ability to at least help, if not take guys like you from like level A to level A++ is astounding. I'm sure you're not going to give us the secret sauce here in the last 15 minutes, but maybe tell us a little bit about the roles, like what, and I know everybody's roles overlap, but what is Cale primarily responsible for? Cody, Casey, Varner, Kennedy? Like if you're going to watch film with one guy, do you pick one guy? It's another one's a mindset or another one's a drill partner? Or, I mean, just whatever you're allowed to tell us without getting in trouble. I'd love to know.
Yeah, I think the secret is everyone thinks there's a secret.
Something's going on there.
I mean that's the thing is everyone, there's something different, and there's nothing different. We just do the same things everyone else does. We just do it better. I think that the thing that's helped me out the most being here is just the mentality and the mindset. It's just different. Coach Cale, gets in front of the team and talks before every practice, and he's always preaching humility and gratitude. Just be humble and be grateful, be thankful. And when you think about your life and put your life in that perspective, and you start viewing things through the lens of humility and gratitude, it just changes. It just changes your perspective on everything. And so I think that's the biggest thing that's helped me. Obviously, all our coaches they're the best coaches in the world. I mean, you can't dispute that. You look at the college, you look at our RTC and the results we're having in both those areas. I mean, they're the best coaches. But it's not just what they do, let's say, on the mat. It's not just the technique. It's the mindset, just the emotional grounding that they bring. Just their presence is calming, and you just know that there's two types of leadership I always think of, and there's you rule with fear or you rule with respect, and I think that's the way that Coach Cale kind of runs his program. Is guys don't do what he says because they fear him. They do what he says because, well, one, he's right, and he's done it, and he lives it every single day. He doesn't preach anything that he doesn't practice himself, and he's very humble when it comes to, hey, I'm not the best at this, and I'm not, I don't live up to this all the time, but I'm trying, and that's all I'm asking you guys to do is try to live a higher cause, live a better life. So I forgot where I was going with that. Anyways,
You're talking about fear versus respect.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Of
And
course.
so when you rule with fear, it only gets you so far, I think, from my experience. But when you respect somebody, especially your superior, I mean, you'll go to battle and then some for them. You'll do whatever it takes. And so when guys are taking that mat, it's just they know whatever the outcome, it doesn't matter. As long as they do their best and they fight hard, that there will be love, coming back for them when they come off the mat. And even if they don't give their best, there'll be love. But having those guys in your corner just makes you want to just do whatever it takes to win within the rules, right? Just because they roll with respect and they respect you and you respect them and you want to give them back something. And for me, sometimes it's the result. I want to give the best result because they put in so much time, effort, and energy into me that they deserve that. They've earned that result back from me. And another thing that's different is just the time. A lot of coaches put in time and effort and energy, but these coaches, I think, take it to an extreme. They go through the whole college season, which everyone knows what that's like. It's a grind. They don't take any vacation. They don't take a time off. March, what do you have right after March? You have the Open. So they're getting guys ready for the Open. And then you're getting guys ready for the trials. And they're getting guys ready for Final X. Now they're getting ready for summer camps. And then we're going to Tunisia. And then we're going to the Worlds. So there's no time off for these guys. And they don't take time off. So you got to be grateful as an athlete for that too, because they have families. They're missing vacations, family time, graduations. all that stuff to be with us. And, like I said, a lot of coaches put in a lot of time, but not the same time as these coaches. It could be any hour of the day, any day of the week. If you need something, that they're there. And a lot of coaching staff say that, but this coaching staff doesn't even say it. They just do it, So as far as like coaches, specifics, Coach Cody Sanderson, he's my guy. So everything I do, kind of runs through him. He kind of sets the plan for me, and we collaborate, and he's my guy. If I'm watching film or talking about a technique or doing drills or whatever, in my corner, he's my guy. But Coach Varner, he's the club coach now, so he's also like my number 2 guy. He's always going on the trips. He's always there, running the parterre practices in the mornings. But there's also collaboration with Coach Casey and Coach Kale as well. They all have their own unique perspective on different positions. So if it's a position that I see Coach Casey and David Taylor working on, I might grab Coach Casey and say, hey, I saw you working with Dave on this. Like, can you explain this to me, or could you help me with this? Because I actually need to work on that too. And Coach Kale, he's kind of like, trying to put the right word to this, but he's like, I'm gonna say this, but I don't know if it's gonna make sense. He's like almost like the guru. He's always like, he's got his guys, but he's also just kind of like the overseer.
That was the word I was thinking. Yeah, the wizard overseer.
Yeah, making sure everything's kind of like he has trust in his guys, and he lets them do whatever they need to do, because there's that trust, right? But he's also just that he's not there. He's always there, just kind of overseeing, overwatching, like a great CEO. He's not in the trenches so much with the guys. He's able to step back and oversee everything and make sure everything's smooth. But just the energy that Coach Kale brings, it's very light, but it's also very serious at the same time. It's very unique, and he's got a lot of good wisdom too, obviously. So like I remember leading up, or I'm sitting there after weigh-ins at the trials last year, and he kind of sits down next to me. He's like, hey, you're gonna go whip this guy. You just gotta make up your mind. It's like, all right, well, if Coach Kale thinks I'm gonna whip him, I'm gonna go out there and whip him. And I went out there and whipped him. So just it's kind of funny, but kind of serious at the same time. It's nice.
There's a old advertising company, I don't think they're in business anymore, called E.F. Hutton. And they said when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. And that sounds like Gale Sanderson in that room, that, whenever he decides to say something, everybody drops what they're doing and listens in. So
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, I talked to a coach this weekend that had coached Snyder. He hadn't coached you, but he said Snyder was like the hardest working guy he'd ever coached in his life. And then training with RBY, it feels like, obviously Keck knows you 100 times better than I do, but from my interactions with you and observations of you, it feels like you want to be surrounded by people that want to work as hard as you, if you can find them, and you're always looking for skilled guys. So tell me about those two relationships.
Yeah. So this goes back to, when COVID hit 2020, for a while I was looking for a change. I needed a change, and sitting down with my wife, we were kind of talking over options and like, hey, what do we do and what can we do? And she just kind of, mentored me and said, hey, write down things that you're looking for and things that you're missing. And that is a start, and something will present itself. And one of the things I wrote down was I need comrades. I need guys in the trenches with me, because at Iowa, I was kind of doing things on my own. There's guys in the club, but they weren't doing the same things I was doing. I was set out to be a World Olympic champion. It's a completely different mindset than being a training partner. They would compete and go to tournaments or whatever, but it's just different. So I remember, I needed comrades. I needed guys in the trenches with me to push me and hold me accountable at the same time. And also wanted to push other people and hold them accountable too, because it's a two-way street. So when, you're looking at Penn State, I got Kyle, Dave, Nolf, Zane, college at RBY, Nick Lee, all these guys are of the same mentality. They want to be the best they can possibly be, and they, will hold me accountable, So when you see guys like just take Snyder, for example, say he's the hardest working, or that coach say he's the hardest working guy he's ever worked with. That's dang true. The guy's a brute and he works hard and he's smart too. So I really appreciate Kyle, not in just a physical sense of pushing me and pushing me physically. And, some days you go in and you're like, I'm going to do 2 matches on Friday, for match day. And like, Kyle, how many matches are you going to do? Oh, I'll do 3 or 4. It's like, all right, I'll do 3 or 4. Just like little things like that. Cause we're teammates, but we're so competitive, maybe not super outwardly, but if this guy's doing 3 matches, you're not going to do 2 matches, and you got to keep up with the Joneses. But also Kyle pushes me a lot spiritually too. We've roomed together a lot in the last couple of years, and we stay up probably later than we should at some of these tournaments, like Pan Am's, for example, the latest tournament. We're at, we stayed up till maybe 11 or 12 every night. We lay down to go to bed at 8:30, but we're up 4 more hours talking about scripture or philosophy or whatever it might be. So he just kind of opens my brain and gives different perspective on especially the spiritual aspect of things. And like I mentioned earlier, that's one of the planes that I've been missing in my career. So to get that knowledge from him, and he's very well versed in the scripture, and he's a student of the Bible. So it's very, very enlightening to hear his perspective and talk about different things. And RBY is a little different in a couple different ways, but I mean we're contemporaries in the sense of like our weights. So. It's no easy day going with Roman, because even when you're drilling, he doesn't like to get scored on. So you got to come in with the mindset of, hey, it's going to be live for 2 hours, essentially. And so we push each other. He's helped me out a lot, and I think I've helped him out a little bit in our wrestling. Just he gives me everything or he exposes everything that I'm not necessarily good at. Controlling the speed, the space. He's funky. He can scramble. Whenever I've gotten beat, I think of like a guy like Fix. Why was I getting beat? It wasn't because I wasn't strong or fast or tough or whatever. It was because he was just a little craftier than me, And so Roman kind of gives me that feel where he's very crafty, very unorthodox in his wrestling style, and also he's quick, he's fast. If I don't hit a shot, more almost perfect, he's gonna hit corner, run behind me, and take me down before I even know what happened. So just being able to wrestle with guys like that just have that speed, endurance, strength. He's a very strong wrestler too. I mean, you just see, what he did in the NCAA finals to a guy like Fix, and Fix is a big, strong kid too. But able to just horsepower through some of those positions is pretty freaky. But it's very competitive. We'll go matches. It's not like wrestling somebody else. It's not like wrestling. Nick Lee pushes me, but he's bigger than me. So like if you lose, it's like, oh, well, he's bigger. You don't like to say that, but in the back of your mind, well, I maybe could have got that position if he was my size. But with Roman, there's no built-in excuse. If you lose, you lose. It's straight up, just he beats you. So having that competitive aspect helps out a lot, because you got to kind of keep your ego in check, but also kind of feed your ego at the same time. So it's a good balance.
Thomas, I got one question for you. If we got time to get through it real quick, you talked about when you were in college, kind of missing that emotional and spiritual plane, and connecting with that. I've got a lot of athletes that I've coached that, like my son, are entering college or had redshirted last year. Well, like if you could go back and talk to yourself or give advice to a college athlete now on how to connect with that emotional or spiritual plane, what advice would you give to those athletes?
I think it's a 2-part answer. I think the first part is take care of business. And what I mean by that is when you're a student athlete, you're a student athlete. There's 2 parts to that. And that's the biggest mistake I made going into college was like, hey, I wrestle for University of Iowa. I don't got to go to class. I'm here to wrestle. But you're first and foremost a student. And if you don't take care of the student aspect of that life, then that emotional baggage is going to carry over into the room. So take care of your grades, take care of your classes, meet with your teachers, build a relationship with your teachers. That's what it's about, networking with your teachers, because there's going to come a time where you need a favor. You need an extra assignment or you need help on something, at the end of the semester. But if you don't have that relationship to begin with, they can't put a name to a face. they're not going to be willing to help you because they have gobs of students. Why are they going to help this guy out? They don't know you. So just building those relationships with the teachers, 1, 2, take care of your schoolwork, because when you go to practice, you want to be completely present. You want to be just there. You don't want to be anywhere else. You don't want to. We've all been in these situations where we go, whether it's to work or practice or whatever it is, and we're physically there at practice, but we're mentally, emotionally at home or somewhere else. And that's a battle that I deal with a lot right now, especially having a daughter. Is sometimes I'll be physically at practice but emotionally at home, or vice versa, physically at home but emotionally at practice because something didn't go my way or it was a bad practice. So just trying to be where you're at, and that's it. Just being present. And it's not an easy thing to do. You have to kind of sometimes you got to calm yourself down and say, hey, I'm here. That's the only place I need to be. Everything outside of this, what's going on right now, will take care of itself in due time. But you have to keep all those things in check. If you're getting bad grades, you're going to go to practice and you'll be thinking about your schoolwork because, I got to do this assignment. Or if you get behind, especially if you're behind in schoolwork, in practice, maybe it's getting the end of practice. You're like, I got to get out of here to get my schoolwork done. And they're kind of cutting your practice short. Or even worse is you get hurt because you're just not there. You're spacing out, or you're just not present. So just taking care of business in all aspects of your life. And the one more thing that goes along with that is your social life, because that's a big aspect in college, especially the first 2 years. You're away from home. Your dad's not there to keep you in line. Your mom's not there to make you dinner. And you have friends, they want to go out. You should do all those things. You got to have fun. You got to experience as part of college, but keeping it in check. Don't let it get out of control. I'm an advocate for having fun. I'm an advocate for letting loose a little bit, but it's got to be within reason. You got to keep your priorities in check. Like, what do you want to do with your life? I want to be a doctor and I want to be an Olympic champion. Okay, well, your schoolwork and your wrestling has to take care of your social life has to gear towards doing those things. So it all has to add up. But just taking care of every little thing, and it's a lot less stressful. My first year, it was very stressful because I got behind a lot. And so I wasn't able to do as much, on the mat as I probably could have or should have, because I was dealing with all kinds of other school issues. So
yeah, it's like clutter, clutter in your mind.
yeah, and you can't have that when you're trying to be the best in the world, or the best you can possibly be on the mat. You need to have that clarity, and the less baggage, the better.
It's probably a perfect way to end this. Thomas, I always appreciate you joining us. And Jason, thank you for your help with the interview and getting him on. Thomas, just observing, you seem like you have this, I wouldn't say perfect, but a really, really good balance right now of peace and hunger, where you seem like you have a lot of peace and happiness in your life, but you're still hungry for more. And I think all of us in life are looking for that. Like, hey, I'm good where I am, but I'm going to keep trying to kick butt and get better every day. So probably more important than all the accolades you've won. Congratulations on the plane of peace and hunger you found so far in life, man. Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. For Jason and Thomas, I'm David. See you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.